My name is Melissa, and I'm 40 years old. I've been married to my husband Jack for 2 decades. To outsiders, our life seems ideal. We live in a spacious home, have a 23-year-old stepson named Ryan from Jack's first marriage, and appear to be the family everyone envies. But behind closed doors, the reality is much different. In the early years of my marriage, Jack and I shared a strong bond. But as time passed, things began to shift. Jack's job and other responsibilities took priority, and before I knew it, he was emotionally distant and even physically cold. It's been years since he's touched me, and that emotional gap only deepened the loneliness I felt. While I was struggling with this emptiness, Ryan unexpectedly came to stay with us during his college break. He planned to stay for a few weeks, and from the moment he arrived, everything changed. Ryan's kindness and attention gave me something I hadn't even realized I was missing. At first, our relationship was polite but distant. Unlike Jack, who was indifferent, Ryan's warmth and genuine smiles slowly began to melt the coldness around me. One morning, as I was making breakfast, Ryan casually said, "Melissa, you look beautiful today." A simple compliment, but it stirred feelings in me I hadn't experienced in years. As the days went by, our conversations grew more personal, moving from casual topics to deeper, more intimate discussions about our pasts. Spending time with him made me feel alive again. One afternoon, while sipping coffee in the backyard, Ryan asked, "Melissa, are you happy?" That simple question triggered a flood of emotions. Tears filled my eyes as I quietly admitted, "I don't think I am." Ryan listened attentively, placing his hand gently on my shoulder. That touch, simple, kind, brought a warmth I hadn't known in years. After that, we spent even more time together, and our connection deepened. When Jack was away, Ryan and I would go on long walks, watch movies, and talk for hours. But as the closeness between us grew, it began to feel like something more than just a stepmother-stepson bond. One evening, Jack was on another business trip, and Ryan and I were looking through old photo albums together. Suddenly, I noticed the way Ryan was looking at me. His gaze was different, more intense. My heart skipped a beat, and for a moment everything felt electric. Then Ryan turned to me and said, "Melissa, you deserve so much more." His words echoed in my mind as tears welled in my eyes. But this time, it wasn't just sadness. It was a feeling of being truly seen and understood. Ryan's hand rested on mine, offering comfort, but there was something more in that touch. Our eyes met, and the silence between us felt like it stretched on forever. Taking a deep breath, I eventually looked away, closing the photo album. "I think I'll head to bed early tonight," I said, my heart racing. I didn't know what to make of it, but that moment would stay with me. When I got to my room, I was overwhelmed with guilt, trying to push down the emotions that had surfaced. But despite my attempts to suppress them, I couldn't forget the way Ryan had looked at me. It was all too real, and yet, I convinced myself that it was a misunderstanding. Deep inside, though, I knew it wasn't. The next morning, Ryan and I crossed paths at breakfast. He smiled sheepishly and said, "I'm sorry about last night. If I made you uncomfortable, that wasn't my intention." His voice was sincere. I nodded, forcing a smile. "It's fine. Everything's okay," but I knew deep down it wasn't. As the days passed, I couldn't deny that having Ryan around was both comforting and unsettling. His attention was having an undeniable effect on me. One evening, Jack texted to let me know he wouldn't be home, so I would be alone with Ryan again. While preparing dinner, Ryan offered to help, and we found ourselves joking and laughing like old friends. It felt easy, natural, like he was someone I could lean on. After dinner, we decided to watch a movie, and as usual, the conversation flowed effortlessly. But this time, there was something different. Ryan looked at me and said, "Melissa, you're so easy to talk to. The more I get to know you, the more I admire you." My chest tightened. I wanted to pull away, but his words kept pulling me closer. The space between us seemed to shrink, and I could almost feel his breath. Then, Ryan gently took my hand. "Melissa, there's something I need to tell you," he said softly. "Spending time with you means so much to me. I care about you deeply, and I want you to know that." His words hit me like a wave, and the turmoil inside me reached its peak. I wanted to push these feelings away, but the truth was, the affection and attention I had longed for had never felt so real. That night, as we watched another movie, Ryan's words had a new weight to them. "Melissa," he said, "you're not just my stepmother. You mean so much more to me." Those words excited me and made me think even harder. What would these new emotions mean for the balance in our lives? I wasn't sure what the future held, but I knew one thing for sure. This connection was something far deeper than I had ever expected. It was only the beginning, and I couldn't ignore the pull I felt. The way Ryan made me feel, alive, seen, and cared for, had changed something inside me. It felt like the start of something far more complicated than I could have imagined. As I wrestled with these feelings, I knew I had to face the truth of what was happening between us. And as this story unfolds, so too will the emotional journey that has only just begun.